All right, we are live on Trucker Talk, sponsored by Market Express. We have Mike Olson and Nick Campos aren't on here yet. Nick may be joining us a little bit, but today we have Tracey Kohler, Customer Service Manager, and Jim Dingman, Vice President of Operations at Market Express. They're joining us to talk a little bit about what they do here at Market Express, and we're going to kick it off and turn it over to Tracey. Tracey, you can start us off and tell us what you do here at Market Express.
Okay. Well, like you said, I'm the customer service manager. At this point, it's an ever-evolving role, like most things are in operations at Market Express. But basically, I help oversee the customer service department and the customer service reps. We have 4 of them, 4 full-time reps. And I also manage a handful of accounts, including like Fred Meyer, our Ryder account. I help with Campos, and then some of the smaller accounts. But in addition to just building those loads and tracking and doing all of that, I also help with payment issues, track down bill of ladings for our accounting department so that they can bill loads to our customers, bill orders, get basically, I don't know.
She's drawing a blank. So,
pretty much a little bit of everything, whatever Jim asks me to do.
Oh.
I also, for instance, with like Fred Meyer loads, with all the weather we've had, I go back and I email them and get chain surcharges approved on loads and things like that. So it's more than just building loads and tracking loads. It's a lot of administrative work too.
All right, and we already got a comment on here that says, "Welcome back, Tracey." I'm not sure who posted that. I don't see names on all of them. So,
if his name is Bill, it'll be very suspicious.
Yes.
Suspicious.
He's not on.
As many of y'all don't know, Tracey is married to one of our drivers, Bill Kohler here, one of the founding drivers here as well. That's why the humor is going on down there. So,
I just want to say to whoever that is, thank you for spelling my name correctly. You really do know who I am if you know how to spell my first name correctly. So I see you and I appreciate you.
And the closed captioning is actually working on here, and it spelled your last name correctly, believe it or not. That was kind of odd. So, and yes, we do have closed captioning because I have some hearing impaired friends that tune in and watch often. So just so you know. So you also help build the loads. Can you tell us a little bit of how you build the loads and how that process works? Because I know a lot of people don't necessarily know how that works in the trucking industry.
Yeah, so loads can come over a handful of different ways. They can come over what we call EDI, which is an electronic data interchange, I think is what EDI stands for officially. That is where that's how we get like our Owens Corning loads, Campbell's, Pactiv. Those loads are all sent EDI. And so when that happens, we pull them in through the system. It doesn't take as much to actually build them because the system basically builds them for us. But then we have other customers where they actually email us tenders, and we have to pull that tender up, either print it out or pull it up on our screen, and then we manually enter all of the information into our AS400 Trimble system, which is our software load management system. And then there's even a few customers who just send us an email and say, hey, can you pick this load up for us here, take it here? And so we build it just based on information in the body of an email. I would say those are the three main ways we build loads, or how we get loads to build.
And when you build that, that includes where they pick up, where they deliver. And then from there, we're going to kick it over to Jim now, who is Vice President of Operations. And he's going to, by the way, I got to step back. George DePolito is the one that said, welcome back, Tracey. And Bobby Davis said, yo. And Dana Bernhardt says, hello from the beautiful Nampa yard. So there you go. So we have quite a few drivers tuned in today. So now I had to go to the other page to see who else commenting, so to get the names. So Jim, once she builds the loads and it goes to operations, what is the normal path that it takes to get to the actual drivers on the road?
Well, that's a good question. It's kind of interesting, the whole chain of events. I mean, it sounds relatively straightforward and easy that you call a customer, you get a load, it goes to the truck. Boy, it is anything but that, and seems to get, maybe in my 30 years doing this, seems to almost get a little bit more complex or convoluted each year. So that whole process from the customer, virtually picking up the phone, which some days is just they put an update on their website, we see it, and then we react, and then that's where Tracey obviously picked up the baton. So then it goes through the gyrations or iterations, is now entered with a date for pickup and a date for delivery. Sometimes we don't have the time yet. Sometimes we work through that with whatever the inbound truck is. Sometimes we're dictated to. We're told this is the time you'll pick it up and this is the time you'll deliver it. And then we start working accordingly. And this is where it goes from maybe a science from a load coming in the door to a real art of trying to figure out how do you align home time, hours of service, a maintenance schedule, and maybe like we saw the last couple of weeks, like how do we get around the weather, right? What do we do here to try to keep moving and avoid some things? So that's where the work begins, because there are a lot of things to compete with, and sometimes I take a step back if somebody's got a doctor's appointment and we need to get them to the doctor's appointment, and how do we do that and still make sure we're keeping a customer satisfied on the other end of that. It gets to be a real balancing act, and a lot of back and forth with the folks here, and also too with maybe building a relay or building some sort of handoff with another driver. So there's a lot of work that goes behind that, and a lot of probably best way to describe it, and this may be an off-color example, but it's sometimes like making sausage. You don't necessarily always want to look or know how. You just want to understand that it's going on, and the end product is pretty good. So a lot of dialogue. There's still a lot of good old-fashioned conversation between individuals, trying to find that sweet spot, how it works out for everybody.
That was my wife saying hello to y'all. Jeff Orr says, Jim, smile.
Well,
and then Tim,
I got resting mean mug, so don't pick on me.
Yeah, well, then Tim Tamarius says there is no normal path, and that's interesting. So the tradition for the last 2 years, and we're going to compare and contrast. 2 years ago, before we had COVID-19 hit, you have all the people in the office together. So if you want to talk to somebody, you step out. Hey, Tracey, we got this. What can you do? Okay, 2 years ago, COVID steps in. And as you can see, Tracey is working from home today. Jim's in the office, and I'm on the road. I'm at the Wilsonville rest area. As a matter of fact, that's where I was parked doing the show today. So now we're seeing a lot of advent of what's going on. What has that done for y'all as far as in the office and what y'all have to do there?
Well, it hasn't made anything easier. That's for sure. I think maybe the good news is, all of us at some level over the course of the last 15 years have gotten used to communicating wherever we're at and however we are, right? So, I know, Roy, sometimes you've called me and, I've literally, I'm sitting on, whatever chair, cup of coffee somewhere, and, here you and I are talking business. 20 years ago, that wasn't going to happen that way, right? You were going to go find a pay phone, and I was going to have to be in the office. Otherwise, we weren't talking.
Right.
So, we had whatever hook or crook, we had that opportunity to prepare. So when at the drop of a hat, just a few really days away from 2 years ago, although there was some, minute by minute challenges, we were all able to pull it off fairly well. And to some extent now, it's gotten to be a little bit more second nature. Still takes a little bit more to push everything across the goal line. It's a lot easier, and pardon the expression here, but it's somebody's looking for a sandwich. It's a lot easier.
Like Candace, so
it's a lot easier for me to just holler across the room and say, Tracey, have you heard back from Dr. Pepper? As opposed to get a hold of her on the phone or send a message. So there's a little bit of time delay, but I think we've kind of figured those things out as we've gone along and how to expedite that. So I think we're living with it fairly well. And actually, it's probably a good thing. Who knows what could happen? Here we were, not even 10 days ago, in the middle of some sort of ice age here at the Portland Yard. People just couldn't get to work, right? And then last week we had the roads closed. So there was no access to 5 or So it's to those things, which they will happen again. Hopefully we're not going to be in some disease-ridden pandemic situation. But when a road closes, or when there's a flood, or when we have some other sort of natural event, it's good that we can now flip the switch, almost again simultaneously or reflexively, and just be back in business.
Yep. Well, and I know. I'm looking as an outsider. I drive truck. I don't work in the normal office environment. So for me, it's business as usual, in all sincerity. And it hasn't impacted us as far as whatever on the road. Now, I'm going to ask y'all a question, because I'm seeing the whole world's changing, and I'm starting to see a lot of changes in office, work remotely, work this, work that, and there's so many different jobs. Do you see that may be the direction everything's headed, now that you're seeing that people can actually work from home and do things from home? It doesn't seem to have that much of an impact, other than maybe a little hiccups in communication, but for the most part, it seems to work pretty smooth.
Yeah, again, I would say for the most part, we've learned as we've gone, we've improved as we've gone. The nature of our business, though, somebody's always got to be behind the wheel of the truck. Somebody's got to be running the forklift. Somebody's got to be opening and closing the doors. I don't think that this portion of trucking will be in a spot where we'll all work from home. There may be functions that do that, or I don't know as though. And don't get me wrong, I'm not picking on anybody or labeling anybody, but it may be easier for our folks that are doing billing or payroll processing. That they don't need necessarily kind of the proximity to be able to have a go back and forth. When if it's Tracey and I, and we're trying to figure out how to get 4 or 5 extra loads booked, or to get something delivered within a deadline window, we need to be pretty close. We need to react very quickly. Being apart slows that down. But in parts of our world or our business, not such a critical note put on time. And again, not picking on anybody, but our payroll team has kind of one deadline a week, right? And as long as they're on track to that, they're okay. In operations, we have a deadline. Good grief! I mean, we're always in front of one, right? Exactly. At least every hour, right? Every hour is some sort of deadline, because you've got some sort of cutoff. So again, a little bit different pace means a little bit different need for proximity and connectivity.
Well, and then Tracey, what are your thoughts on it? Because I know you've worked at a couple of different places too, and you've actually worked at a couple of different places during the pandemic. What do you see? Because I know you're at home today, and we'll get into that in a little while. But tell us what you.
So I can see plus and minus to both sides. Working from home, I actually feel like I'm less distracted, which I think is probably not the norm. Most people think if they're working from home, they're gonna be distracted by a TV or by a load of laundry or something. I don't have that issue. I feel like I can sit at my desk and just focus in. Easier sometimes than if I'm at the office, where the phones are ringing or people are walking by your desk asking questions or what have you. So in some ways I prefer working at home, but long term, I don't see it necessarily being feasible in this business. What I would like us to get to is, if you don't feel good, stay home, and not have there be a stigma behind doing that. I think work from home has taught us that if you need to stay home for a day or two because you've got a cold or a flu or whatever, you can do that. And I would just like to see less of a stigma about calling up and saying, "Hey, not feeling good today. I'm going to work from home," and just having the general attitude being, "Okay, thanks. We don't want your germs."
Well,
in the office anyway.
Yeah, let's put that in a real-time example. So somehow, and who knows exactly how this happened, but we had somebody, we have no idea who or how or when, but when we had 9 people out here recently at the same time, literally starting the same day with the same illness, right? Something went wrong there. And again, thank goodness we were already kind of practiced at this, and we went into the drill reflexively. But yeah, showing up in a close-knit environment sick, it's kind of one thing to be on your own and have a little bit of a sniffle, but gosh, when you pass it along to 5 or 6, 10 different people and their family members, a whole different world and a whole different set of problems. So.
Yeah.
Well, and I have to take a quick commercial break for my sponsor that provides me the internet to make this happen on the road, and that's Rick Workman's Communication. So we got to give him a big shout out.
Yeah.
Tired of calling multiple companies to complete your low voltage projects? Minimize the hassle by calling Workman Communications, your locally owned one-stop shop for all low voltage needs. We tackle everything from commercial and residential data, telephone cabling to access control installation, CCTV, alarms, and audio-video solutions. With no job too big or too small, we'll ensure your project will be completed to your standards with precision quality results. Let's start a new project together.
And thank you, Rick Workman of Workman's Communication. He does a ton of stuff for me through the racing podcast and the racing communication and all that other stuff, and super big supporter of all of that to do with racing plus this. And everybody that's tuning in tonight, reach down on the bottom left-hand side of your phone or whatever you're looking at, and where it says share, hit your little share button. Let everybody that's out there in your atmosphere or Twitter sphere or whatever you want to call it, share this out. Let's help build this up, because this is a lot of fun stuff. And then Bobby Davis just tested positive Friday, Black Monday. Thank you guys for understanding. Feeling much better, truthfully. I want to jump in there too, because Joe Alvarez stopped in here and said, and this is company stuff too, but this is for general public, so everybody knows that. So you'll see some Market Express comments in here, because we have a lot of our drivers watching. But anyway, they're asking what's the plan for getting the trailer placement fixed. We have a lot of trailers stuck in areas, and we need them in others. Dana Bernhardt added to that, says, I'm looking at the same 3 Fred Meyer's trailers here in the Nampa yard for months.
Okay. Well, so we'll take each of those are kind of separate issues. So the Fred Meyer trailer, Dana, maybe you and I could talk on those. We don't have a good way of tracking their trailers in our world, so they can end up in places, and we don't know they're there. We don't have electronic visibility to them, so we need physical visibility, as I think you're pointing out. The other piece of trailers, I mean, as long as we're moving trailers, this is an evergreen issue. It's gonna be with us, and we're looking at trailers every day and trying to balance where they're at every day. The other thing that we're up against every day is we have customers that sometimes load ahead, customers that maybe they don't unload them quickly enough, customers that will sit on them. So we're kind of always, fighting back the bears, if you will, on what's going on with trailers. So, and that's always going to be there. I started doing this in the early 90s. It's been the same every year since. It's just nonstop maintenance and keep up with. We are doing, and this will help over the course of time, and we'll be done, I would say, by midsummer. We might have a few stragglers after that, but we are putting a tracking system in every trailer. And it is pretty marvelous, by the way. And Roy, we'll have to figure out how we can do kind of a demonstration on this, but it's very unique in that it's real time. And I've actually called this out to a couple of customers that insist they don't have our trailer on site. And I can tell them, well, yes, you do. It's next to the fire hydrant on the south corner of the building. 20 minutes later, they'll call back and say, oh, you were right. We found the trailer. And of course, that just happened. Was it on Friday or Saturday, Tracy? I don't remember what it was. I took a great sense of pride and accomplishment in answering that question for them after they insisted that they were not there. And it was, because we could see it tracking, and it had sent a signal with just in minutes. So it was clearly there. The other thing that's pretty fascinating with it is you can actually see the trailer on a map moving. And we've had another customer that insists they do not have a backup at their gate. And so as I was watching this one day, I saw the trailer come down the street, stop at the stoplight, make a left-hand turn, come down the street, stop basically in the middle of the street, and lo and behold, it's one of our customers. And lo and behold, an instant follow-up to the driver involved, and he said, yes, I'm sitting out here in the street. I'm probably the 10th truck back, right? So it also goes to managing the everyday pools and understanding the balance and et cetera. Now, when we have, so that's coming. That's by the way of a product called Samsara, which is also going to be our in-cab.
I have that now.
Yep. And the benefit of that is we can see that you're hooked to it, Roy. We can tell what trailer it is. And at some point we'll be able to say, hey, Roy, you pulled 40-30 out of the yard. You pulled 40-30. We need you to take 40-03. You got the wrong one. So anyway, we can do that through Samsara because it connects the two together, which is great. None of the other trailer tracking providers out there have that, and manage yards. And we'll even be able to tell at some point, is the trailer loaded or unloaded? So if a customer says, well, your trailer's been here for 3 days unloaded, we can say, no, it's not. It's still loaded. It's your problem. Technology is helping us narrow in on that. We still need, though, like Dana pointed out, like, hey, you see something, raise your hand. Say there's 3 trailers here that have been here whatever amount of time. And we can get that.
Yeah, correct. Dana said she can always deadhead one of these trailers back after home time. Then we have Josie Valdez Jr., who commented that he's getting a 2179 LA local driver checking in.
Good to hear from you, Joe.
Yeah, and then I have to give a huge shout out to Tiffany Haitley. She's listening in from Australia. We had her husband on the racing podcast this last Thursday. What a wonderful group of people. Funny. Oh, they had me in tears. We were talking about kangaroos and brown snakes over there, and a brown snake over there is not what we refer to. I don't want to meet a brown snake. I can assure you after listening to that discussion. Wow. They're talking about they have to stop the races on occasion for getting one of those in the infield, and they're highly poisonous. I was like, oh, hell no. Nope. No depart. And then they were talking about running over kangaroos on the highway running home, and I'm thinking, I haven't had that problem, but we've had a bear and a deer and some other things, but never a kangaroo. Thank God. So, and my wife said, you're not the boss of me when I told everybody to share this out. So, yeah.
Nice.
So,
I was going to mention Tracey's married to a driver. I am not, by the way. I'm not married to a truck driver, but I'll share this because this is always interesting. I always get questions. Whenever we meet somebody new, I always tell them what I do, and they say, "Well, do you drive?" And I say, "No, they won't let me do that. I'm not qualified. I'm not that good." But what people don't know is that my wife, she grew up in a trucking household. Her dad drove for 37 years before he retired. So my wife's from a trucking household, and my dad drove for 10 plus years before being involved in a head-on accident on the New Jersey Turnpike, and then was not able to drive for long enough that he had to find a different career path. So I'm from a driver household. My wife is from a driver household. So all things trucking are kind of all conversation at our house all the time. So deeply immersed.
Tracy's dad was a driver. My dad was a driver. I grew up on a farm. My dad hauled cattle almost all my life. And I know Jim was in the Marine Corps for several years, and I was in the Navy for several years. My sister was in the Air Force, and her husband was in a couple of branches, and my niece is in the Army. So we all it just seems kind of funny. There's always veterans in families of truck driving, and that seems to be a lot of them. And I know Joe that's coming in here is a veteran, quite a bit.
And you know what the interesting part is that we all have in common? I'm sure if we all think about it, none of us really found trucking. Trucking somehow found us, right?
Yes.
Trucking. We weren't out looking. It found us, and then it's like the mob. Once you're in, you don't get out. Even you're right back in. You never get out of this. So
this April
that's the beauty of it.
This April will be 22 years since I went to work for my dad. I always say I've been in the business my whole life, having been the daughter of a truck driver, having gone on the road with my dad. My best memories as a kid are like my dad on a Saturday morning needing to be in LA on Monday saying, hey, you want to go? And it's summer and you're 12 and you're like, got nothing better to do. So you throw a bag together and you hop in the truck and go. And those were really fun times. But then he hired me when he had a Landstar agency in 2000. And here I am 22 years later. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, the years go fast. But yeah, you're right. It's like the mafia. You can't escape.
Well, and there's Joe said his wife was a nursing student and almost done with school. We up and started driving. And it's funny. There's been a lot of stories over the last few years. You read about people that were high-powered business executives and wife and husbands that did it, and they just got tired of it and walked out of that and went to truck driving school and got in it. And now they just absolutely love just cruising the world. And that's, for me, I personally like it because I'm one that always thrives on chaos and lives in that constant chaos. I am mess. And this is ideal for me because that's why I don't want to be on a dedicated route necessarily or whatever. I always look forward to what's the next dispatch going to say. I tell people all the time, where am I going next? And yes, there's a lot of them that's like, well, why in the hell am I going there? That don't sound very fun. It just had that happen this week, so we'll leave it at that. So, but I survived. I got to go to the lovely city of Gardenia, California.
You're going to be okay, Roy. You're going to be okay.
Hey, I'm out of there. Now I got to go drive through Portland.
Somebody got you the delivery appointment that fit your ETA perfectly, though.
Yep.
It did. I told you that I got to go home for 2 days. So, and Bobby Davis said drove cab for 3 years, been driving truck for 8. I don't know how to drive cab. I don't think I would enjoy that very much. That sounds like that would suck, but yeah. I don't like people that well, so we'll leave it at that.
But this is not said often enough. But in reality, there is a high degree of nobleness in what we're all doing, and there's no more apparent proof, although maybe not quite enough fanfare or press on it. But if not for those of us that are involved in transportation, warehousing, and distribution in the last 2 years, I can only imagine the level that things would have descended to had the logistics arm of this country, and specifically our drivers, stopped or even had a disruption for a few days. We would have had empty grocery stores, right? We would have had fuelless gas stations. There would have been literally, and this is no joke, this isn't trying to gin anything up, we would have had the beginning of the breakdown of society as we know it in really a few short days or hours had anything with a rolling wheel stopped. And so there's never been a more poignant example that in my lifetime in what we're doing to show that this is a noble job. This is an absolute economic and society, not just an economic good. This is a societal have to have. We have to do this in our society, and there's no way to not at this point in the game. So to everybody that's out there listening, that's behind the wheel, know that at whatever level you want to attribute it to, assign it to, define it to, like there was some salvation found with anybody that had a Class A noted on their driver's license. So it's a big deal, and it's probably never been bigger in the last 24 months.
Dana Bernhardt said I was a professional horse trainer until I got tired of being broke. Well, Dana, I can tell you, I used to ride bulls at a rodeo and do stupid things, so I got a race car, which made it even worse. So I'm known to make bad decisions, so yes, I can understand that. And Anthony posted up something on his Facebook page the other day, and I'm going to tell him myself on public right here on the internet. You showed you're talking about the noble profession of truck driver, and we always hear the old history of old drivers and their starched jeans, their cowboy boots, and then it went to kind of the lace-up work boots, then it went to tennis shoes, then it went to slip-ons, then slippers. So, Anthony, here you go, buddy.
Oh, ouch.
The tie-dye Crocs, sir. There you go. So that was kind of a long-standing joke. He said, I bet you got blue fuzzy slippers. And I said, nope, they're tie-dye. So, and I fought the temptation of buying Crocs, and I finally bought a pair, and oh my God, they're the most comfortable shoe there ever was. So somebody said, ouch, yes. Can you explain that to the Department of Transportation? That's from Tim Tamarius.
The what? The Crocs or
no?
What I said about the nobleness of the transportation industry. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good question, Tim. In all honesty, I don't want to look at our folks that are in enforcement or compliance as an adversary. I think they've done a lot of good over the course of time. There's been, maybe a pain here and there, albeit anybody in that capacity is likely to fall into that bucket at some point in time. But we all know there's folks out there on the road that shouldn't be. We all know there's equipment out there on the road that should not be. And so, we all have to, maybe have some sort of temporary inconvenience here and there to do that. But, we look back on it too, and there's currently an available suspension right now to abide by hours of service. So, I don't recall the broadness of nature of the, the early days of having of the outbreak where hours of service were just basically suspended, right? Inspections weren't happening. And I really wish at this point that I had a picture of this, but it was probably the second week into the pandemic or the shutdown or quarantine or whatever we want to call it. I was on I-5 in the Seattle area, about Fife, headed southbound on I-5. There wasn't a car in front of me as far as you could see, and there wasn't a car behind me as far as you could see. So we did have a moment of time where we owned the place, right? It was just us out there on the road as professional drivers and those of us still heading into the office. And so, yes, I know there's some folks that are overzealous. I know there's some things that are, just a pain to try to work with. I'm not fond of, I'll say it out loud, I'm not fond of the way the current hours of service are structured. But those are the rules right now, so we're going to work with them. But we're also going to continue to share our voice and make our voices heard about how we think it should be and how we think we can make it better. So, and anytime we're working with a government entity, it's always going to be, some level of bureaucratic headache, kind of the way it goes.
Well, and I want to give a shout out to one of our dispatchers that's been called up for their supposed, whatever you want to call it, truck drivers not doing their job, whatever you want to add to it to satisfy this supply chain efforts. And that's Javin. He's watching tonight. Javin, don't freeze to death in Indiana because I know how cold it gets in the wintertime there. It sucks. I went to boot camp not very far away from you in Great Lakes, Illinois. It's the only time of my life, first time in my life I saw lake effect snow. I don't envy you, sir. You can stay there. I don't need to come see you.
No, we want Javin to come back. Don't stay there.
But yeah, I still talk to him. He called me the other day and dispatched me, so I'm not gonna say nothing. So yeah, so thanks for your help the other day, Javin. But no, and you mentioned something earlier, and we talked about it earlier on in the show and with this whole thing. How many military members at this company volunteered to go work when all this stuff happened? I know I did. And I've said all along, if they want to fix the supply chain shortage here, bring all your veterans that are that were in the military or reservists or whatever you got in the truck driving industry. Suspend their hours of service. Let them use their best judgment. Pay them a stipend. Don't call up the forces. How many of us would stand in line to come back and just do whatever to get that extra money every month? I would run like that. And
I think as long as I didn't have to get up at 4 a.m. and run 3 miles, I might raise my hand. If I got to run 3 miles in the middle of the night, man, I ain't doing it.
3 miles.
I think you got a good point, Roy. There would be a lot of people that do that. I think that I don't want to like politically opine on all this, but some of what's going on right now is a little bit manufactured, if you will, to say that.
Oh, I know it is
Um,
100%.
and will be, will sort itself out in due time. I would also say too that right now this is a very good time to be out in our industry. I remember, and I'm sure there's folks on the call that remember that it wasn't all that long ago when you delivered. You called in to dispatch. You didn't hit the Qualcomm or the Samsara or cell phone or whatever. You found a phone and called in and said, "Hey, I'm empty over here at XYZ." And dispatch said, "Okay, head to this or take a nap or whatever. I should have my loads come in a couple of hours and I can get you dispatched." Right? We are so far from that right now where anybody that's empty, we probably have 6 to 10 loads waiting that we're playing hot potato with, trying to get moving. So there is some benefit that we're kind of as busy as we want to be right now. But again, I think there's some pieces of this that if they were taken out or streamlined, we wouldn't have to worry about any of that. And so I haven't lost a lot of sleep over it because I don't see a structural problem with our supply chain. I see some points of intervention or some points of kind of creating a little bit of a problem that will go away in due time.
It's funny you said that. Market Express, we're in our 5th year, getting ready to celebrate 6 soon. And just that long ago, when I started here, we didn't have communication. I had to stop, pull over, and call dispatch and say, "We're empty here. Where are we going?" So you don't even have to look that far back. It's just right here where we're all working. It was that way. We didn't have electronic communication for probably 6 months when we started here. So,
Right.
And that's not that long ago. So
no, we've come a long ways.
It's 5 o'clock for y'all, so I think we'll end it right here. We went a little longer than we normally did. We try to stick to the 30 minutes during the week, so y'all get out there right at 5 o'clock and deal with traffic. So good timing, right?
Yeah.
I have no traffic today.
So, all right. Well, hang tight, guys. I'm going to end it right here. So,
all right. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Roy.